So tax benefits, tax deductions, depreciation. So I'm not an accountant, don't desire to be an accountant, and quite frankly, I really don't desire to know that much about real estate tax law, honestly. But I do hear a lot of people talk about getting into rental property for the tax deductions. And so, one, I would say maybe reconsider that mindset. I don't think it's typically wise to get into something just to pay less taxes. I I'm not going to say that I enjoy paying taxes, but I pay a lot in taxes, and I'm okay with it because I make a fair amount of money, and so I know that's part of the game, and I look for loopholes, I look for ways to pay less taxes, and I work with my accountant a lot on that. But I know that's part of the business. But me personally, I'm not going to get into an investment because I'm like, oh, I might not make any money, but I can pay less in taxes. So with rental property, it just so happens that you can make a lot of money, but also get tax benefits and deductions from it. So I'm not going to go too deep into this, except to say, of course, all of your expenses, well, talk to your accountant, but basically all of your expenses that you have with investment property are tax deductible. Not only the purchase price and the closing costs and the repairs, but you can look at gas mileage going to and from the house, maybe certain meals with contractors, or building your team if you're in a coaching or mentoring program, or you're getting online training or education, whatever. Like all that stuff can be tax deductible. Most likely, talk to your attorney, so your accountant, but that's one of the benefits with this. And then you get into depreciation. Depreciation is where you choose how you want to take that deduction. You can take it all at once if you need that. If you're in that situation, you can spread it out over time. So while I don't recommend that you come into investment property just for tax deductions, it can be, as the last bullet point says, a very, very powerful income shield. But talk to your accountant about that, and see what you can deduct, because you can get into, of course, I didn't mention insurance, home office expenses, management fees, preparing your taxes, all this kind of stuff can be tax deductible. So there's some really, really incredible benefits with that. So, I talked about appreciation, but also inflation. So even though the average rate of inflation is around 3%, let's talk about if there's instances of, I'm not going to say hyperinflation, but there's signs in certain markets where we have like an abundance of inflation, to where certain areas may go up 10-15% in a short period of time. So typically over time, inflation has a very negative impact for most people, right? They always say inflation is the hidden tax. Not for us as real estate investors. Not for us as real estate investors. As the cost of living increases, guess what also increases? The cost of rent. If you've got long-term financing in place, guess what? That doesn't change. No matter how much inflation goes up and how much the cost of living goes up, your rent collectively goes up. Like if you start here, like this guy here, this is your mortgage. So when you rent it, when you first buy the property, let's say your rent level is right here. 2 or 3 years later, your rent level's here. 2 or 3 years later, your rent level's here. 2 or 3 years later, your rent level, like it's up here. Guess where your mortgage is? Right here. Sure, your insurance and taxes may have gone up a little bit, but your rent is significantly higher. Significantly higher. So you're basically leveraging, once again, this cheap long-term money that's fully leveraged, and you're just getting the benefits of it. Inflation, appreciation, all of these things. And at the same time, your principal is going down as well. So these are just some of the things for you, my friends, to consider, but for me, it's nothing left to consider. It's like, how do we buy more? How do we manage it without it being a headache, that kind of stuff. So when I first got into rental property, I was told, well, I'm sorry, I didn't even change the slide before. So this was the slide before, apologize. So that's the inflation slide, so you got it, my bad. So let's talk about yield. Let's talk about the cash flow. So let me just cut straight to the chase. Does rental property have yield? So if you buy it right, if you're disciplined and you buy it right, you bet your butt, like, you better get cash flow, and your properties better generate cash, because one of the components of staying, being successful in this business is having staying power, and properties have to cash flow, period, right, after all of your expenses. So the answer to that question is yes, when done right. Do I view this as passive income? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So in most instances, and I'm talking about, meaning that you are probably fully leveraging this property, maybe 100%, maybe not, maybe 80 or 90%, whatever it is. But if you're not putting more than, say, 20, 30, 40% down, then that means you're fully leveraging it. So it's not going to yield a ton of cash flow, at least not in today's market right now on most deals. There's exceptions to every rule, and there's exceptions to almost everything I say. Right now I'm speaking to the 80 or 90%. There are some markets that we will go through, and some that I've been through. I don't know if they'll be as extreme as that, but you are able to fully leverage property 100% and cash flow like a mother, but that's not the market right now. So for me, that's okay. Why? Because my intention with rental property is not really the cash flow. You see, when I got started in this business, there was a lot of mentoring and coaching. I feel like falsely leading people to believe that single-family home rental property was this incredibly passive investment with tons of cash flow. So it can be, if you're putting a lot of cash down to buy it, and you have no, day-to-day responsibilities with your properties, meaning, how are you finding those properties? How many properties are you doing? Who's managing the rehabs? Who's taking phone calls, the emails from the tenants, et cetera, et cetera. I've found that multifamily is much more passive, and the most absolute way to invest passively in real estate is just being a lender, quite frankly. So if your goal is just passive income, I would not look for rental property. I would become a lender. Rental property is how we earn the greatest amounts of return, and we do generate cash from it. You better generate cash from it. But for me, this is about wealth creation. So the cash that's generated from our rentals goes back to my rental portfolio to either pay down principal more aggressively, or it's just there for other repairs, maintenance, vacancies, whatever that comes up that's unexpected. And when I get to a certain number, like I have certain numbers that I have in all of my properties with my accounts for my partnerships and my own properties with rental property, when they get to a certain number, then we'll pay down principal, right? So that's what we do with the cash flow for our properties, not the other way around.